It is time to talk about this membership survey situation, and let me be clear, Jagex is not telling the full truth to us. They are withholding information because they have plans internally that they are not going to share at this point, but things are going to happen, and mark my words, there will be changes to the membership system in old school RuneScape. In this video, we're going to talk about the membership survey briefly, but we're also going to talk about the response that they send out in response to our backlash, because there's a lot of information there when you read it that it's very clear that they're lying to us. There are a couple reasons why I'm going to share my opinion. Firstly, I do have a research background, so I'll offer a little bit of perspective on the research piece. But secondly, if you've been following the channel past a little bit, you might know that I have a background in software, product launches, stuff like that. And I've even firsthand seen what it's like internally to launch changes to pricing. So it all starts with this blog post that was shared on the website, explaining that they're going to do a conjoint survey and that this was aimed at exploring how players value different membership features and combinations. So that right there definitely got people's ears perked up because it's a touchy subject. The part that I think is really interesting here though is that this was done in partnership with Skim. This is their research partner. This tells me a couple things. One, their internal research team, it either doesn't exist or is very small. And two, they likely do some research internally through various methods, like they have data to lean on. They have like a general sense of the community and the sentiment. They have live streams and Reddit. There's so much information that they're already tapped into. Them going to an external partner, a third-party partner to get research done tells me that this is part of a larger initiative and they wanted some deep information on it, which tells me this is linked to a very much existing project targeted towards changing membership. The survey itself had a bunch of different options and a ton of different price points, but it kind of broke down into these four groups: a reduced price membership, the base membership we currently have now, which is $12.50, an improved membership that costs more than that, and then like this crazy super membership where you get like a ton of stuff on it. Now, in terms of the stuff that they'd offer in each of these, we had limitations and we had perks. The survey would mix these limitations around, mix these perks around, put them in different groups. Generally speaking, the very high tier here had like 3 or 4 of these perks and none of the limitations. The reduced price membership, that one included mobile only, ads included, and short AFK timer as like the primary ways of reducing features to reduce the price. Obviously, what we have a problem with is some of the options here. They say that they're kind of just testing them, but the fact that they're even like showing some of these is in bad taste and kind of breaks some level of trust. And we're going to get into those ones. So the first one that was like really bad for people on this list, ads included. Nobody wants ads in old school. Now, the way that this usually popped up, right, in 90% of the cases, one case it was in base membership, was under reduced price membership. So the principle here is that you could pay less, watch some ads. So similar to like Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, where you can have it free or pay a low amount, but still have an ad experience. The idea here is that if you didn't have the money, like maybe you were low income or you couldn't justify spending the money on old school, you could instead pay less and then see a few ads here and there, provided they don't influence your gameplay experience. Maybe that could work for you. In principle, I don't really have a problem with that, but, and I'm saying but before I get like disliked for this, I don't have a problem with the principle. I have a problem when it gets put into practice that it opens the door to ads in old school. Once that door's open, it's only a matter of time before this expands. In the follow-up message by Jagex, which we're going to get into very shortly, they said that none of these would impact gameplay fairness and that the options in the survey focus outside of gameplay. That is a blatant lie. Shorter AFK timer, how is that outside of gameplay exactly? You're going to be able to, AFK for longer if you pay for more. That is definitely a gameplay thing, and it definitely affects the fairness. People can pay for more AFK time effectively. That is just crazy that that's on the list. Improved data and API access. The API, I guess, is technically outside of the game, but what comes of it affects the game. People are going to be able to develop better plugins than the RuneLite plugins. That could lead to a situation where you have to pay for a higher membership to get these better plugins. That's going to affect gameplay because plugins affect gameplay, right? Their quality of life, they make things smoother. This here, big no-no as well. That shouldn't be here. Specialized members worlds. This one is just nuts to me. There's going to be these worlds that only if you pay like a higher amount you'll get access to. That means that you're going to have like less competition, less bots, like, you know, more competent players to play with potentially. Like, there's so much here that is just like ridiculous. Even in the survey video itself, they call it exclusive members worlds. Like, the term exclusive should be enough to like trigger how just nuts this proposition is and how much it affects gameplay. When it comes to your account outside of the game, there's always two things players complain about. They complain about the lack of support, and they complain about security of their account. And here they are trying to monetize both of them. Enhance player support. You know, it's not uncommon in industries, usually outside of the gaming industry though, to have some level of improved support when you're paying a certain amount. That makes sense at like an enterprise level or whatnot. But you can't do it in old school when people are complaining about your base level of support. Like, that is just the fact that you're going to pitch a better level of support when you can barely function as a regular support system just doesn't make sense at all. And then you have account security. Account security is already a major issue. Why not try to monetize it? That's just not fair to do. And the fact that like account security in general is being monetized, like, we're not hiring a security company and paying for more security or anything. Like, this is a video game. This should be included already. And then pre-verified account recovery, this is essentially putting in your like ID, real world ID, and then being able to get your account back, you know, pretty much instantly. Oh man, like, this to me is just the fact that you do it once and then you might use it in the future. It's like you're paying for insurance of your account. This should just exist. Why are we paying for insurance? This is not fair. The next couple people aren't really happy with, but maybe there's a version that they could kind of work with if they're gonna have some sort of system like this. Name reservations is one of them. Being able to have a name reserved for, you know, an indefinite period of time while you have another name, that could be cool. The problem with this though is that right now people can get their name sniped. They need to solve that problem first. If they can solve the problem where your name can't be easily sniped from people, that's fine. Then maybe you could have name reservations. But I know some people just want this by default. A lot of this people just want by default, of course. Enhanced display name. This could work, but what I don't like about this is the fact that it just might not work in old school. It's not, you know, old school is a very simple game, right? Maybe if they can show us some really good mock-ups and whatnot, like, it could work. But a lot of time cosmetics in the game and whatnot are, you know, a reward for doing gameplay things, not a reward for spending money. So we'll see if they ever push forward with this, what this looks like. This might be an example that might work. And now we're getting to the ones that could possibly work a little bit smoother. Mobile only could work. Like, maybe that's something that could work, especially in certain demographics, certain economic situations. Still kind of weird. All of these are weird, let's be honest. Pausing membership, like, this is an interesting one. I mean, it's an account like control thing. This should either exist or not exist. It as like a perk is kind of awkward in my opinion. I mean, I wouldn't mind paying a little bit more because I do take breaks, but then they're not making money potentially if people are like effectively using this. So they'd have to add like weird limitations on it as well, where you can only pause a certain amount of times in a year or certain periods in between. Like, it could be a little bit messy. Community worlds. This one is interesting. So this would be private servers, Project Xanaris. That's coming out later, right? On one hand, you pay a little bit more, you know, then you get access to all these private servers, and that could work. But on the other hand, I feel like this also kills private servers, because I'm going to try private servers for fun, definitely. I might jump around, you know, maybe once a year or something like that, check something out. But if I got to change my membership to do it, I'm probably not doing it. So you're probably killing Project Xanaris if you do something like this. And as a result, whatever fee they're going to charge for running these servers, less people are going to run these servers. So like, arguably you end up losing money by having this as a tier here. And then we're left with the only ones that kind of work cleanly without getting some group of people mad. Single character versus multiple characters, or cheaper alts. Just having the ability to have multiple characters at a cheaper price. People have always wanted that. I wouldn't mind that personally. Single game access versus multi-game access. This really only would anger people who play both games. But even right now, you can't use one character on both games at the same time. Maybe this would make it so you can, right? So that could be something that could work. And I think a lot of players will just go with whatever option is giving them the single game access, because that's probably 99% of the player base. So that's the survey. We had the backlash, and now we're going to look at the response. And this is where I'm going to offer my opinion based on my experience and where I think they are just not telling the truth at all. They say here that the purpose of the survey is to gather feedback. It is not a list of planned changes. It's a research tool designed to help us understand what you, the players, value in your membership. This here is the biggest lie. It's not a list, an exhaustive list of the plans that they are going to go with, definitely, but they are planning these changes, okay? You do not use an external research team to conduct a huge survey where, by the way, you included like 20 videos with like double cameras, okay, to explain all the features. Like, there was a lot of effort that went into this survey. This is not just them doing research for the sake of doing research. They have a project internally to introduce, tiered memberships to old school, and they're doing their research to see what works. So yes, not a complete list of plan changes, but there are changes planned. And then these next 3 paragraphs explaining why the surveys exist provide valuable insight is definitely true. But what I really want to talk about is how much they talk about the bad here. So they talk about the dislike, the uncomfortable topics, safeguards against unpopular or misaligned stuff, asking hard questions. They're just trying to justify why they brought up some of these options, sometimes difficult. There's so much of that language here, right? It's so clear that no one wants a lot of the things here. They don't want to make assumptions, which is what they say here, which in research, you definitely don't want to make assumptions. But I feel like it's very, very clear that people, are going to feel strongly against certain things. Like, how out of touch can you be? The mod team knows this 100%, right? They probably know this themselves, but they go ahead and ask it anyways. They do this because they definitely have plans to pitch some of this stuff, and they're just trying to see which one are like the lesser of the evils and get those through. So yeah, we might not see those really, really bad ones or those ones that affect gameplay, but we will see some of the ones that sneak under the radar. Like, those are going to come definitely. Next up, they talk about the survey methodology, and this first part makes sense, right? They're doing an analysis, it's a combination of this, that, etc. That adds up, but this interesting bit here, just because an option appears in the survey does not mean we are planning to implement it. While this is probably true, the opposite is also true, right? They are probably planning on implementing some things in the survey. Here they're just saying, hey, just because the option there doesn't mean it's coming, but there's some there depending on the survey results, depending on the direction they want to go, that are going to get implemented. So I'm making it clear here that this is coming to RuneScape, right? Both old school and RuneScape 3. If you don't think it's coming, they have a section here explaining tiered membership systems and what it is and why they're doing it, etc. Important bit here, though, we are exploring the concept of additional options. Now, this isn't like, me exploring something or just some people sitting at the table and, brainstorming a little bit. You did this external research through a researching partner that you worked in collaboration with. You made this very extensive survey where you had these videos shown in the survey explaining the features that had like double cameras. This is a lot more than just like exploring in the traditional sense. This is exploring in the sense of a company exploring, where you have the director, the people below the director really getting into it, making a project brief, project manager, stakeholders, all that exists internally at Jagex for tiered membership systems. And part of that is obviously, well, let's do some research, see what players like. It's bold that they did that, right? But they're trying to test the waters here. In-game advertising is a really big one. They say here that there are no plans to include ads, which is like a really good start, but then they end with in the base membership. So this just reads as there are plans to include ads in the reduced price membership, right? They even say here there are no plans to make ad-supported options a significant part of the game. Again, that reads as they have plans to make ad-supported options a part of the game, right? So it seems like this is something that they're really gonna push. And it could be very likely that this comes unless we really, fight against it, cancel our memberships enough, etc. This is probably the biggest threat. And they're going to position this in a certain way. They're going to say, listen, it's not going to affect any members now at all. Your experience is going to stay the exact same. This is just going to help people with less money or don't want to spend as much money or whatever, be able to play the game we all love, which they're going to use that type of language, at a reduced cost or whatever, right? And it's going to seem altruistic. It's going to seem mutually beneficial, right? And when it actually gets released, that is, more or less true. I don't have a problem with that part. What I have a problem with is once we introduce this, we open the floodgates, okay? 5 years after this gets released, right, things change, right? Conditioning happens, right? We get used to the ads. Some players say, oh, you know what? The ads actually aren't that bad. They're not that intrusive, right? Stuff like that starts to happen. Or, the price of the membership continues to climb beyond inflation, and we'll end up dropping our plans and start watching ads as like a normal way to save money. As soon as ads get added, this will eventually happen, and more players will see this. It won't just stick with the reduced price membership and a small subset of players. It will become more and more commonplace as the years pass. So we need to really, really be vigilant about this one right here. Paid player support. This should just be a baseline experience, and it should remain a standard part. I love that they're like assuming that the robust customer experience is like already here by saying it remains a standard part of membership. That's interesting. Yeah, paid player support doesn't really work in the video game space very well, in my opinion, because there isn't like as much of like a premium status gap that other services might have, where you're like I don't know, let's say you're like a small store versus like a massive wholesaler. It's like, okay, the wholesaler is going to get premium support from, Amazon or something. I don't know. Like that makes more sense. But in a game where we all have the same gameplay experience and everything, the same like security and everything, it doesn't really work. So that doesn't work. Reduced AFK timers, they say that this just, it's been widely criticized. They don't even explain why it's been criticized, because it does impact gameplay. And this isn't the only one. They don't even mention the other ones here. And then this last section here, they talk about our feedback matters and all that. But the main part I want to focus on is this one line. This research is a starting point for discussion. They also say it's not an announcement of changes, but that's just patronizing. Like, we know it's not an announcement of changes. We're not dumb, right? That's not why we're mad. You know why we're mad. So yeah, don't treat us like we're children. Treat us like we're adults. But this part here, the research is a starting point for discussion, is a lie dressed up as a truth. The truth of this is that, yes, this is a starting point for discussion between Jagex and the players. The lie, though, is that this is not a starting point for discussion overall, right? This is not a starting point for discussion for Jagex internally. They would have been discussing this long before they discuss it with us. So just keep that in mind, what that means. You do not go external, right, to do external stuff from the players until you're kind of ready to. You don't do this type of research until you're ready to, until there's worth to doing it, right? They're acting like this is like, hey, like we just started this. We decided to reach out to an external research team and pay them to just start talking. That's not true, right? They would have had to talk about this for a while to get to this point. They would have had their briefs done. They might have technical briefs done. They might not, they're definitely not coding. Like they're not like coding this stuff in. You wouldn't go that far, definitely. But they definitely have a lot of the details mapped out, what they plan to do. They might even have some designs mocked up. So just keep that in mind, that this here is just trying to deflect more than anything. They are further along than you think. And that's my opinion on the whole thing. It's pretty, speculative when I'm thinking about what's happening behind the scenes. I was kind of allegedly assuming things are happening at Jagex. But that's just me offering my perspective. Hopefully it's helpful. What I do think is going to happen next is eventually we're going to get some sort of V2 version of this. And I do think that tiered memberships are coming to the game. It's a matter of time. But what we can do is do our best to fight to ensure that those tiered memberships are fair and don't include the things we absolutely don't want. Last little fun thing is the fact that the blog ends with the old school team. That's just to tell you that this is coming from like the management side more. Typically, these blogs have all the mod names written out. This one doesn't, because yeah, it's essentially the entire company, right? But that's mainly to say that the mods that we all know and love, that we see in the videos, that interact with us, they're not responsible for this, right? They are part of the company and they might have to like push things through or whatever the case is, but they're not the ones pushing this. So just keep that in mind. Continue to show them love. Continue to enjoy the game because they love it just as much as us.